Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood at night. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Monday, June 17th. LA Galaxy 4-2 victors over Sporting Kansas City on Saturday night. Maybe a complete game, maybe not a complete game. Maybe they couldn't put it on cruise control and they tried. We're going to talk about the game. Another win for the Galaxy at home, undefeated at home. But another game on Wednesday night against New York City FC as we get ready for another 3-game week that ends against Real Salt Lake this weekend. So a lot to get to, a lot to talk about. We're going to jump right into it. To help us do all that, we're glad to have him back in the house. It's Kevin the Panda Baxter. Kev, how you doing, bud?
Hey, you know that intro song, the new intro song you have now, that the first mention, it's Los Angeles. The guy says Los Angeles. That's not how locals say it. My dad was born in Philadelphia. He used to say Los Angeles. But if you're a local, it's not Los Angeles.
Okay. Is that it? Was that the thing?
That's
I mean,
the rant,
people are singing and chanting things, and you're worried about the pronunciation. I sometimes I worry about what you focus on and what you completely frickin' miss. Like last time you swore on the show, we've never swore on this show in the entire existence of it. But you're like, hey, let's just throw a BS bomb in there.
You want me to do it again, just the last show?
No, I really don't. Okay. I really don't. Otherwise, you'll owe me money, which is funny because I've never paid you anything, but then you would owe me money. So it would be a strange thing to.
But you did actually. I don't think you gave it to me. I think you let me make a donation to Corner of the Galaxy to get some bobbleheads, and I wanted to talk about bobbleheads just a second.
Okay. Yes, absolutely, please.
First of all, I met more than normal, a lot of listeners at the game. They came up and talked to me, and a couple guys wanted selfies and stuff. Man, I really appreciate that because you and I are sitting here, and I really honestly think I'm speaking only to you, that we're just having a conversation. And then I find people have listened to the show and they bring up stuff that we mentioned, and I'm like, yeah, we did say that. That's you really did listen, and it still stuns me that people listen to this stuff. So anyway, I love when you guys come up and talk to us. But one listener came up at halftime, and he actually you see my bobbleheads back here, all the bobblehead, wrong hand, right?
Yeah.
All the bobbleheads I have back there, hundreds of bobbleheads. So I do collect them. It goes back to my days as a baseball writer when they used to give out a lot of bobbleheads at games. So this listener came up at halftime and asked me if I wanted his Robbie Rogers bobblehead. And of course I did, but I wasn't going to say that because I'm sure he wanted it. But anyway, he gave it to me. So here's what the Robbie Rogers bobblehead looks like. I really appreciated that. It'll go into the collection. The jersey, I think this looks like a more modern jersey. Remember, he retired in 2017.
Correct. It is the current jersey. So he didn't have that jersey, but
so maybe that's like he's making a comeback, and we don't know.
Absolutely.
But so I wanted to share some of my other bobbleheads that I have here. This is probably the soccer one that's the best one. Here's Landon Donovan with the Earthquakes, with the blonde hair, and look at that face. He looks like Lurch.
He's like he's like snarling, Kevin. He's like okay.
Well, when he was younger.
Yes.
And then we got Josh Gibson.
Okay, that's a good one.
Grays.
Yep.
We got here's the former president.
Yep, Barack Obama.
Right. He's going the wrong way. There he is.
Okay, perfect.
We got Mark Twain.
All right, nice.
And here's got a cigar.
That's a nice Mark Twain one. That's very nice. Okay.
Got a cigar there. And then and here we go. We have Pope Francis.
Pope Francis.
We can,
Wow, you really do have a lot of bobbleheads.
Speaking of Saints,
Yes.
here he is,
Out of the
Saint
way.
Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah, there he
And
is.
but what I want to point out with this, that looks actually pretty good. That's pretty good, Kevin De Bruyne.
Right.
He's wearing loafers, those shoes.
Well,
He's got like I don't know if he's going to the prom or what's going on here, but anyway.
the way Belgium played today, maybe he was wearing loafers. I don't know. So that
On his way to MLS, I hear.
that's always and ever. So,
But anyway, I really, really appreciate you guys coming up and talking to us. I really appreciate it when you give me bobbleheads, especially. I appreciate that. That was above and beyond. It should have gone into your collection, sir. And I appreciate you sharing it with me. So anyway, there we go.
Gary wants to know, where do you even get a Mark Twain bobblehead? Like,
Mrs. Panda, who is now, as I told you earlier,
Oh, God.
new nickname is 50 Centavo. Anyway, she's the one that came up with that. She got me Mark Twain, and I think she got me a Thomas Jefferson one too.
okay, all
That
right.
one came from my, I mean,
Right.
I probably Thomas Jefferson is, but the Pope one, I ordered these online. The Pope one's kind of cool.
Of course you did. Does the Pope have a store where he sells his own bobbleheads? I mean, is that? I don't know.
And soap, the Pope on a rope soap.
Yeah, when is the Corner of the Galaxy bobblehead coming out? I don't know. The head won't fit in the box for all of us. That's the problem.
I think I got this one at church. They had a Pope giveaway one day. Come to church and they had bobbleheads. First 5,000 through the pews.
Yeah, you got a Pope giveaway. That's hysterical. That was nice. I was gonna say, if you go to Vatican City, first 5,000 in the get a free Pope bobblehead.
That's right. Get a free Pope bobblehead.
Oh, that's funny. All right, very good. Well, let's talk about the LA Galaxy a little bit. Being it's an LA Galaxy show, Galaxy remain undefeated at home. Now, one of only 3 teams in all of Major League Soccer that are undefeated at home. The Galaxy 5-0-3, the same as New York Red Bulls, who are 5-0-3 at home, and then it's LAFC, who's played one more game at 7-0-2 right now. That has.
When's the last time they've gone unbeaten at home this late into the season?
I guessed. I think you looked it up, but I guessed 2011. That was my guess.
I looked it up and I had actually got this wrong earlier in the season. So I apologize to anyone who remembers that, and no one does. So it's okay. But in 2016, Bruce's last year went to the playoffs. The last season that this fella here played, Robbie Rogers, in 2016, they were 8-1-8 at home during the regular season. They didn't lose. Their only loss at home came in late September.
Okay.
So that was the last time they were undefeated at home this late into the season. But that was a really weird season. They tied, I think, 14 games that season.
Yeah, and that's if you look at that one, that's one of those that you sit there and you scratch your head, because realistically they had a lot of really good stats, but they weren't winning games. So yeah, I that makes sense. 2016, I can see it absolutely. So LA Galaxy get a 4-2 win over Sporting Kansas City. My general thoughts on this game were, 1, no Riqui Puig. Riqui Puig out with a groin injury. Greg Vanny says possibility he'll be back for Wednesday. I am thinking that's sunshine being blown in a certain direction. There's 0 chance, I think, that Riqui Puig will be available for Wednesday. That's just my guess, because you're not.
How do you get hurt during a 2-week break?
That's somebody asked that question. It was your day off. How'd you get hurt on your day off?
Exactly.
The whole deal. I don't know. As you get older, Kevin, you sneeze wrong and you might need a day off. You could pull your groin. So the whole deal. But
He's 11. He's 11 years old.
It seems that way. No, I mean, we don't know. I don't know if it was in training or anything else. I don't know if it was just one of those things that's sort of been building up. And then, it finally happened. But apparently he was in and out of some training earlier last week. And so he's close. I just think that trying to rush him into a Wednesday game probably isn't going to happen, especially if he wasn't ready to play on, the Saturday night. So there's a chance, but as of right now, I don't think that's going to happen. But Riqui Puig not playing, Gaston Brugman not playing, right? So you have 2 guys who are fairly integral to what the LA Galaxy do. I think there were a lot of question marks about how the Galaxy would line up and who would pull the strings. And as much as we want to sort of look at Sporting Kansas City, who's way down in the Western Conference standings, they actually are, if you watch them play, and I watched a couple of their games, I was actually talking to Damian Calhoun about this because he was sitting next to me at the press box, but they play a lot like they did against the LA Galaxy. That's how they're losing games this year. They're losing games 4-2, but they were in that game for a lot of time. They get chances that they don't convert. And the Galaxy got lucky that they didn't, because quite honestly, I think that Sporting Kansas City probably could have scored another goal, at least in that. And so, Sporting Kansas City is a better team than their record suggests, but at the end of the day, they're going to be mired in the Western Conference basement. And there's going to be a lot of questions around Peter Vermees and everybody else. In fact, that was sort of the big question when we were sitting in the press box is how long does Peter Vermees get to last in this thing? It's one of those things because he's also in charge of like all the soccer operations, like Bruce Arena was there. And so like, do you fire yourself is sort of a Peter Vermees thing. Is Peter Vermees going to fire himself, Kevin? And I think it's more than that. I told Damian Calhoun, I go, everybody's got a boss. I go, that dude's got a boss somewhere. So eventually Peter Vermees may be on his way out. But watching them play against the Galaxy, I thought they were better than I thought they were according to their schedule. And I was surprised that without Riqui Puig, the LA Galaxy were able to, I think, really put on the show that they did. And I think they got some key returns in there. But it was a very interesting. Every time I expected the Galaxy to pull away, Kevin, and like 2-0. At 2-0, I was like, this game's over. And then it was 2-1 real quick. It's like, okay, it's not over, And then it's 3-1. You're like, okay, this game's over. And then it was 3-2, and you're like, okay, this game's not over again. It's like you wanted the Galaxy to put that game away, and they didn't. And I'm waiting for that to happen. I'm waiting for the Galaxy to be that team that just puts teams away, and they let Sporting Kansas City hang around. They made it more difficult. All those things came in. In the end, a good victory, but I think you'd want to see a little bit more composure from those guys.
Well, and that's why I know I get accused of being Debbie Downer on this show all the time, but that's why I'm just not convinced this is a top flight MLS team. Like I said, they'll go to the playoffs. They might win a couple of games, but they're not a contender. And for that reason, they're just lacking a little bit. And Diego Fagundes talked about it after the game. He said, if we play 90 minutes, we're the best team in the league, but we haven't played 90 minutes yet. We haven't come close. We haven't put together a full game yet. And when we do that, you guys are going to see something different. And they haven't done that. I was kind of kidding about Riqui Puig. I know that Greg has talked about for the last couple of weeks that he's been dealing with some stuff and he wanted to get him healthy, and the break came at the right time for him. So obviously the things that he's been dealing with are a little more serious than we were led to believe, which is fine. But, another 3-game week, I think he's going to sit out at least one, if not both. They need him too much for the rest of the season. And when you talked about how they played, I thought Jonathan Perez was the best player on the field in the first half. I thought he was really, really good. And then I saw Will Kuntz at halftime in the press box, and I said, wow, Jonathan Perez, what a half. And he indicated to me at that point, he said, he was really good at, but he's gassed. He's coming out. We're going to put Joseph Paintsil in. And the way it worked out, I think that clearly that was the plan all along. I think they told Jonathan Perez, you use up 90 minutes of energy in the first 45 because you're coming out. And that's what he did. And I think that's why Will said he's gassed. He was supposed to be gassed. They told him to give everything he had in the first 45 when he was coming out. And it worked out really well for the Galaxy.
Well, and that's an interesting. Let's go to the starting lineup here real quick just to get through it. John McCarthy in starting goal. It's Miki Amane, Jalen Neal, Maya Yoshida, Julian Alde. You had, Julian Alde. I keep saying it wrong. I'll get it right eventually. Mark Delgado, Edwin Cerrillo in there, Gabriel Peck, Diego Fagundes in the center taking over for Puig, and then Johnny Perez out on the left-hand side, and then you had Dejan Joveljic starting and back up top for the LA Galaxy. Johnny Perez was a really good player in that first half. He was dynamic, he was quick, he was fun. Now, according to Greg Vanney, because there was a weird sub that happened in the second half, according to Greg Vanney, Jonathan Perez was supposed to bridge them into about the 65th minute. So he was playing, and then apparently he got injured towards the latter half of that first half, right? So the last, I think, 5, 6, 7 minutes of that first half, he got injured. Greg Vanney said that he felt something in his hamstring. He says, it just got tight on him, and we didn't want to press it, so we wanted to sub him. So what did they do at halftime? But they brought in Mauricio Cuevas to play into that left midfielder role. Greg Vanney had nothing but wonderful things to say about Mauricio Cuevas in the amount of time, in the 15 minutes, the 20 minutes that he played in that game. He came in, was dynamic. He kept the pace going. Everything was going, pretty quick, pretty fast. Everything was good. Then Joseph Paintsil came in on about the 65th minute to go ahead and close everything out, right? So everybody was asking why the Cuevas sub. Well, the idea was that they wanted to try to get Johnny Perez into the 60th, 65th, and then I imagine Will knew that he was gassed and injured at that point at the halftime, knew that Paintsil was probably going to come in, but Vanney didn't want to stretch Paintsill for the whole 45 minutes. So there was a sub for the sub there, which rarely happens, but in this case it did. And I know a lot of people were scratching their head. I had theorized because I thought it was Johnny Perez got injured and they were trying to bridge the gap between Paintsill, and that is what happened. That's what Greg Vanney confirmed.
Well, and it was interesting. Greg said afterwards that Paintsill was he needs more game fitness. He said a lot of the things that are, it's kind of like muscle memory, but you need to be fit to do that. A lot of the stuff that Paintsill's really good at. I mean, he's very fast, but some of the technique stuff he needs to get back into sort of a game rhythm. And Joseph talked about it after the game. He hasn't had a break for a while. He's been playing with the national team, with his club team in Europe, and then he comes over here at the start of the season. So he really hasn't had a break. But Greg said he thought that Paintsill was so dangerous. If with a little luck, he could have had a hat trick in the 30 minutes or so that he played.
He had some good chances for sure.
I saw a stat in social media, and I don't know whether you know this, that the Galaxy have not lost when Diego Fagundes started.
They
lost 3 times.
I did see some of that, but when Diego Fagundes starts, he is not. I don't think they've lost. That is correct. I think that was an Acevedo stat in our press conference right before we started, and so I didn't have that one. And I don't remember what the exact is, but when Diego Fagundes starts, the LA Galaxy are undefeated. Talking about a guy who filled in for Riqui Puig, Greg Vanney was super high on Diego Fagundes and what he did. He had to basically pick up a lot of the slack for Riqui Puig. We knew that coming in. And so watching him be able to move around and do stuff, thought it was really good. The guy who benefited the most from that, Gabriel Peck, coming in on that left-hand side, right-hand side, wherever side he wants to come in. A goal and 2 assists in the game. He ends up making MLS team of the match day. So did Dejan Joveljic on there. Dejan Joveljic also got a goal, right? So you get Peck with the goal, you get Paintsill with the goal, you get Joveljic with the goal, and then everybody's favorite late game sub, Miguel Berry with a goal too. The Galaxy are getting, and I was talking to somebody who covers New York City FC, and they were doing a little preview, and they're like, why is the Galaxy offense, so prolific? Why are they so good? And my whole thing is they're spreading it out, Kevin. When you look at this, these are some big numbers that I'm about to tell you, and remember we're 18 games in the season, so we're 1 game past halfway. These are the goal contributions we've gotten. Dejan Joveljic, 13 goal contributions, 10 goals, 3 assists. Riqui Puig, 14 goal contributions, 6 goals, 8 assists. Joseph Paintsill, 10 goal contributions, 5 goals, 5 assists. Gabriel Peck, 11 goal contributions, 5 goals, 5 assists. There are guys in here, specifically Paintsill and Peck, that the Galaxy went out to get for their goal contributions, for the assists, for the goals, and they are producing in the way that they want. Riqui Puig, who is right now, I think, probably the LA Galaxy's team MVP whenever you look at it, and if he can play and pick up, and if the Galaxy continue to trend towards the upper top of the Western Conference, will be in MVP talks if he continues on the path that he's sort of going on right now. With 14 goal contributions, 6 goals and 8 assists, that's a ton. Whenever you look at that, Paintsill, they go out and get Joseph Paintsill, 5 goals, 5 assists, and he's missed some games. That's a guy who, as we talked, could have had 3 or 4 goals in the 35-40 minutes that he played on Saturday night. Gabriel Peck finally looking comfortable. Damian Calhoun and I were talking, and I'm like, I'm not one of these guys, and I hate saying this, Kevin, so I always preface this. I'm not one of these guys who says, man, this team is really setting up for next year. I hate that. I like this year. What are we talking about this year? How does it look? But if you think that Gabriel Peck is going to take a similar player arc to somebody like Julian Aude, who is one of the Galaxy's best defenders this year. If you do that and you consider that Peck, if that's the case, that Peck is just scratching the surface, and it's why the Galaxy spent so much time on him, or so much money on him, then you really have to start looking at next year as, Joseph Paintsill coming in with an off season and he's healthy. Gabriel Peck, super comfortable in the league now, getting ready to tear people apart. He's a year older. You have Julian Aude, who continues to be a beast and gets older. Like, there are players here that you can see next season, and if they continue to raise their level, the Galaxy can be a real monster next year. And that's not even saying anything about this year, because the numbers I just said are great numbers, Kevin. They're spreading out the offense, though. It's not all about one person, and I think Saturday night sort of proved that.
Well, it's not all about one person. It's not all about one game. When teams score a lot of goals, you tend to look through the schedule and you see a lot of 5-1 and 6-2 games. The 4 goals matched their season high. So they have not scored more than 4 goals. They're averaging over 2 goals a game, but they haven't scored more than 4 in any one game.
Well, I mean, more than 4 goals is a lot. But in 7 of their 18 games, the Galaxy have scored 3 or more goals. 7 of their 18.
They're very consistent. And when you talk about the goal contributions coming from a lot of players, I mean, let's remember, Paintsil is he talked about he's tired, and he kind of suggested that he could do with a rest. He doesn't want to take a rest now. That's not what I mean, but just that there's a lot of wear and tear on his body because he came from a mid-season in Europe right over here. And Peck may be in the same situation. He was playing with youth teams in Brazil and stuff. But another thing, just not them coming back, they're going to know the league. They're going to know the Galaxy. They're going to travel. Travel is huge to international players that come to MLS, and they really struggle with it. And we'll see how things go in the second half. But they're going to come back next year rested, knowing what they're getting themselves into, knowing what the travel is like, knowing the opponents. It's going to make a huge difference. On the Riqui Puig thing, I was actually thinking quite a bit about that. The problem with the MVP voting, I think it's clear that Riqui is the most valuable player in the Galaxy. I don't think you can debate that. And probably you can make the argument that he is the most valuable player in the league when you look at how the Galaxy play without him. The problem is, if you look at the MLS MVP, it almost always goes to the Golden Boot winner or a guy that's in the top 1 or 2. Riqui's not going to be there.
Nope.
Riqui's going to have a lot of goal contributions. He's probably going to need high double digits, like 13, 14 of each, to really get in that conversation. And then he's going to need people a little bit nuanced to look at that and say, oh yeah, Hani Mukhtar had 26 goals, but those guys had a goal differential of 47 or whatever. So it really didn't matter.
Right.
Riqui Puig is on a team that plays a lot of 1 and 2 goal games and has assists and goals, and look at their record when he didn't play.
I mean, if you sort of put him in where it says now, right? So halfway through the season, if you double what he has, 12 goals, 16 assists, that's not bad. I think you're right. The goal number probably has to come up a little bit higher, right? So in order to do that, but it's going to be clear, I think, that Riqui is both the best part of the LA Galaxy and sometimes the worst part of the Galaxy, because certainly he doesn't exactly play Vanny ball the way that Vanny always wants it to happen. Vanny talked about it playing inside the system and how it works. The Galaxy played very much inside their system on Saturday night. And when Ricky's not there to create things, then it's more dependent on the system. And I thought the Galaxy played the system well, yes.
Let me ask you a question. When you look at a guy like Chicharito would get a lot of goals, very few assists. I think Mukhtar is a guy like that. There are players in the league there. Boanga's kind of like that. But then you look at, say, a Carlos Vela or Diego Rossi when they were at LAFC getting golden boots, and they had a lot of assists. So, and I'm just wondering what you think. If a guy like Hani Mukhtar has 27 goals and 2 assists, so he has 29 goal contributions, and a guy like Riqui has 16 of each, 32,
right?
Which one's more valuable?
Right. Well, and it's always subjective that way, right?
Well, I think the guy with the assist, because he's clearly making his teammates better.
Right.
The other guy is just clearly just sitting in front of the goal, waiting for something to happen. He's probably a poacher. It would seem to me the other guy's more valuable because, again, he's creating for his teammates, but he has the ability to step up and score when he has to. He makes his teammates better. He spreads the offense out, and he's not a one-dimensional player. That's just my thought. But I still think you have to have pretty phenomenal stats if you're not going to win it as a goal scorer.
Well, I mean, so turning it back to Sporting Kansas City and what we saw without Riqui Puig there, we saw Diego Fagundes come alive. We saw Johnny Perez step up. Now, I think there's question marks whether Johnny Perez is going to be ready and can play on Wednesday night now if he's injured. Quite honestly, Mauricio Cuevas might go back there and play in that position again. But I also think that Joseph Paintsil's probably ready to give about 65, 70 minutes. I think that's what he was talking to us after the game, and he sort of said, that's my next step is 65, 70, 80 minutes, somewhere in there. So I think he'll start in that, but who comes on for him could be a Cuevas, could be that if Johnny Perez isn't there. But Greg Vanny said 2 games in a row for Johnny Perez, he's been really good. And Greg Vanny calling that out is like, he's earning more playing time. He's showing us he's ready. We're going to give it to him. Like, it's coming because he's been putting in the time, in the minutes. We see it. He's had 2 good performances. We want him there, right? So,
monster game by Peck, by the way, as you mentioned. You were the one that said it first. He had a monster game, but you know who else had a really good game was Mickey Amani. 2 hockey assists.
See,
beautiful pass.
Maya Yoshida though made me, and I know why Maya. We talked to Maya afterwards, which by the way he goes, "Oh, thank you. This is the first time I talked to you guys after a win. Thank you." The whole day. he's called us out, because that is correct. Whenever they lose, we want to talk to somebody like Maya Yoshida. Also, when you lose, it's usually because you gave up goals, so we want to talk about the goals that you gave up. But I said, I thought Miki had a really good game. He goes, did he? And that's criticism. That's captain criticism for Maya Yoshida, which is we gave up 2 goals, and 2 of those could have been on Miki's side. And we're watching that, and we're paying attention to it. By the way, I would like to, for all the people who hate on the LA Galaxy's defense, only the LA Galaxy have only allowed more than 2 goals twice this whole year. Through 18 games, they've only allowed more than 2 goals in a game. In both of those games, they didn't lose. They won one of those games, and they lost, and they drew one of those games. So the idea that the Galaxy ship all these multiple goals all the time. Now, the problem is that they very consistently give up 1 or 2 goals. So they are always giving up goals, that type of thing. But to say that, they're this horrible defense and blah, 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 all this stuff that's happening, the stats don't prove that out. I will say that, I thought John McCarthy could have came out on that second one and possibly got to the ball. Greg Vanney said something similar, said he wanted to look at it again, but that was on Miki's side. So yes, you're right. I also thought Miki Amane had a really great game, but we're looking at it from a more offensive point of view than I think a whole view, because he had the 2 hockey assists, but that assist out to Gabriel Peck, the switch and the long ball that he hit over top of the defender that curved into Peck's right into Peck's path. Peck runs through it and hits it across and squares it for Joseph Paintsel to put in. It's just such a beautiful play, and it's exactly what the Galaxy needed. That really did put the game away. It ends up being 3-2 at that one point, and then it goes 4-2 whenever Miguel Better scores the 4th. But my whole point is that Miki Amane is starting to be comfortable. I think Greg Vanney talked a little bit about him, and then Maya Yoshida said there's more still to his game, right? That was sort of Maya's thing. He was like, there's more. I know there's more.
And both of Miguel Berry's goals have been exactly the same. Sliding, sticking that right foot out. He slides better than Trey Turner when he's with the Dodgers. That's kind of his thing, I guess. And by the way, when you talk about, the Galaxy give up a goal or 2 goals every game, that's John McCarthy. That's just the way I saw him play all last season. That's just the way he plays. And that's not a knock. I've made the point that I think he's a really great addition to this team, but he doesn't pitch a whole ton of shutouts. I think he had maybe 8 last year, and that was a career high. He doesn't pitch a lot of shutouts. And I know when a team scores against you, it's on the team defense. It's just not the goalkeeper. But when you look at John McCarthy's record, he is a good goalkeeper, but he doesn't get a lot of shutouts. So that the Galaxy, that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, it feels that way. It feels that way. But no, I mean, when we look at this performance from the LA Galaxy, again, for me, there's a lot of positives, Kevin. You can come into this and say, man, the Galaxy are really playing well. You're starting to see things. The Chicago game was a bad game. You wanted to resurrect that, and they had to sit on that for, 14, 15 days and think about that. Now they go against Sporting Kansas City, a team they should beat. Even whenever we knew that Riqui Puig wasn't going to play, it's still like, you still got to beat them. I will say, and I think people are concerned about this, and I don't know that they shouldn't be, especially after last year, but the injury bug just won't let go of the Galaxy, right? There's always 1 or 2 guys. It's like, oh man, everybody's going to be healthy coming out of this break. Well, no, Puig goes down, right? It's like Brugman's still not back. So like you're waiting. There's always that time, and I think I've talked about this over the years too, because I remember saying this thing. There is no guarantee the Galaxy are ever going to be 100% healthy. So what they're doing now with the depth they have, and again, this is for everybody who says the Galaxy don't have depth. I call BS, right? Not happening. You're crazy, because the Galaxy go down multiple starters, and they're able to go in and hang 4 goals on a Sporting Kansas City team that isn't great, but one that they should beat, and they beat them 4-2. Was it a perfect game? No. Does the defense need to be a little better? Yeah, it does. But you also lost some things whenever Paintsel comes on and he doesn't play a lot of defense, and the Galaxy sort of shifted around. You have Diego Fagundes playing in a position he hasn't played a ton of, but Diego Fagundes was outstanding. This is why Diego Fagundes is making, almost $1 million, right? This is why paying him almost $1 million is worth every penny, Kevin. We talked about at the beginning of the year, there would be minutes for Diego Fagundes, and there have been minutes for Diego Fagundes this year.
When you talk about the injuries, so look at this team. They're really set at center back. I mean, Jalen Neal is back. He seems to be 100%. So that's good. They're deep at center back, maybe a little weak on the outside. They played a couple of games without Riqui Puig, one because of the red card suspension, and one
yellow card suspension.
Well, a yellow card accumulation, and then now with the injury, when you look, there seems to be a working plan to get around an absence at just about every position. Not long term, guy out for the season, everything changes. Right. the one position where I don't think the Galaxy can afford to be without their starter is I think Joveljic is the one guy that can't be replaced.
Yeah, not right
And
now.
that changes everything.
Yeah, we pointed out the two worst games for the LA Galaxy, Miguel Berry started. That was Austin and it was Chicago. Those are the two worst games the Galaxy have played. And both of those were Miguel Berry starts. He's not a starter. Listen, he's great, though, whenever you're up a goal and you want somebody to chase things down. Dude doesn't stop moving, doesn't stop. But it's a very select position. Again, I don't think the Galaxy have the money to be able to go out there and do anything. I really don't. I think that they're going to go after this backup midfielder because there's ways to shift around. We've talked about how you can shift out for Joveljic. You don't have to just play Miguel Berry in that position. You could play Diego Fagundes up there if you wanted to. You could play Joseph Paintsel over there and move Fagundes out wide. You could play Gabriel Peck up there and move Fagundes out wide for him. There are options the Galaxy have. Even if Johnny Perez, you could play Johnny Perez up there if you really wanted to. There are ways to get around the Miguel Berry problem without going out and getting another striker. And I don't think the Galaxy have the money right now for another striker, and so they're going to go in for this second, I think central midfielder. The Marco Royce thing, again, last we heard, far from done, and there's no guarantee it will, but they're going to have a backup plan. They're going to have a plan B for that. And so they're going to go out there and get something that they want, and that will help, they think, really solidify the squad going into the summer. Every team has to get better in the summer, Kevin. That's mandatory. With a transfer window open, you always need to get better in a transfer window. So what did the Galaxy add? Who do they add? If it's a Marco Royce type thing, you could even move Riqui Puig into a striker role if you wanted to. You could have Marco Royce playing a false nine. There are ways around the Berry situation, but in a perfect scenario, Dejan Joveljic is there. And for a guy who has 13 goal contributions, he's doing everything the LA Galaxy have asked him to do. Absolutely everything. When he's healthy and he's out there, 10 goals, 3 assists. He could have had a 4th assist if Peck would have made that one, but the rebound came out and Joveljic got to hit it twice before it went in to the goal, so he got a goal instead. He almost had the assist, instead he gets the goal. So for me, there's ways to move around the Miguel Berry system, so I'm not concerned the Galaxy not getting a striker, but you're right. Is the one guy that they really can't afford to be without if they're going to play Miguel Berry in that position is Dejan Joveljic.
So is this the first game this year where all 3 DP? Well,
nope.
Wait, Riqui didn't play yet.
Nope.
Yeah. Dejan is not a DP.
He's not.
Of him as DP.
No, but the Galaxy had plenty of games where all 3 DPs played, so they've had it. That's not something, and they started.
No, I mean, where all 3 scored.
Oh no, yeah, there was one. It wasn't that long ago. It was maybe 2 games ago. I can't remember who it was against. The chat room will remember. All 3 DPs scored. They had it.
And we talked at the beginning of the year. Well, we didn't talk. Dejan talked. Dejan said 15 goals that's what I want. He's halfway to 20.
Yeah, he's on pace. He's on pace to get that. I think, and I would love to see his assists keep going. I thought he was very involved in the offense.
Him as an MVP candidate. If he winds up with 20 goals, again, Ricky's the MVP of the team. But if Dejan winds up with 20 goals, should he and the Galaxy finish 2nd or 3rd? Should he be in the conversation?
Is it fair that he won't be? No. If he winds up with 20 goals, there'll be a lot of people talking about it, and he should be in the Golden Boot race. Probably 25 is usually right around there, so he might be in it. Will it be fair that he won't be in the MVP conversation? It probably won't be fair. But the way that he finishes, he won't be in the MVP conversation.
Well, here's why I think he might be, and I tend to agree with you, but I think he might be. If the Galaxy are up there 2nd and 3rd in the conference, maybe for whatever, if they're really high and fighting for that home playoff berth. Remember, they were 2nd to the bottom last year, and people who don't follow the Galaxy and every MLS team every day, they're going to look at that and say, "Whoa, wait a minute! This team sucked last year. Look where they are now. What's the difference? Oh my God, this guy has 20 goals.
Yeah.
Well, that's got to be the reason." And they may not look down further and see, well, Riqui Puig is. I mean, Riqui Puig now is making a name in this league, and we know that bit by the jersey sales, if nothing else, that people know who he is. And he would probably be the safe bet. But I just do think people are going to look at that and say, wait a minute, this team sucked. Now they're really good. Hey, this guy has 20 goals. He didn't have 20 goals last year. That's the reason.
Yeah, very well could be. Listen, there was some other thing. Dejan Joveljic, by the way, got a yellow card, a weirdest yellow card I've ever seen. And somehow Tim Melia keeps getting away from getting seriously punished for things that he does in games or out of games. He choked a player once; it didn't matter. The whole deal. But I thought it was interesting watching Dejan Joveljic. Chris Pencil, the referee, I would say very much the Galaxy had a hostile referee adjudicating them after the Dejan situation. So Tim Melia gets the ball. Dejan Joveljic was closing that down to just make sure that Melia got the ball. Melia gets up, starts sprinting. Joveljic definitely gets in his way, like the whole deal. Melia punches him across the face. I don't know how else you could say that. You raise your arm and you swing it at somebody's head, and that's what happens. Joveljic.
Well, I think the yellow card was for stopping the fist with your face.
That's
probably foul.
Do you remember when Rolf Felcher got fouled in the Colorado game, and it was what was it? The Greek referee Fotis Bazakos or something like that, right?
Why do you got to bring ethnicity into this?
No, it's just I just remember this, and we had it was late in the game. The Galaxy basically should have had a penalty kick. And the decision by the referee was that it wasn't a penalty kick. And whenever he was asked after the game, he said, "Well, the attacking player, which was the LA Galaxy in this case, he stopped. He ran into the guy's foot like the whole day. It's like the guy kicked him in the chest, but he ran into his foot. That type of thing. That's sort of what you're saying is Joveljic ran into Melia's fist."
I appreciate you mentioning Rolf Felcher. It's like old timers day.
Rolf Felcher, I know. It feels that way. Rolf Felcher, best voice on the LA Galaxy, absolutely, 100%. He sang on our podcast. Mr. Ravino asked about the disco. Maybe. I mean, would you really be like surprised if they didn't do anything? I was talking to somebody. I won't put this person's name out there because I imagine that they wouldn't necessarily like this. But I was talking with somebody, and we were talking about referees, and it was one of those things where it's like, do you know a lot of the referees? Like, Kevin, we've been around following this league for a while. We know a lot of the referees, right? You're like, oh, I know this referee. I've seen him officiate matches. This year, that has gone by the wayside. I'm like, I have no idea who this guy is. Like, I don't remember this guy. I don't remember this guy ever being here. Like, and then you look, and he's like, oh, this is his 12th game. You know, like there feels like there's a whole bunch of new guys in there. They do not have a feel for the game, and you can tell. Now, Chris Penso has no excuse except that Chris Penso sort of does this on a regular basis. So that's sort of his general
I wonder if this is a product of the strike.
You would think that they would come back though. Like I don't know. One of the things that was suggested was maybe USL saw the strike, and USL was like, "Hey, we're going to pay you more money, and you don't have to travel as much. So maybe we'll raise what we're paying at the USL level." And that means you don't have to travel as much because you can stay regionally. But you know, that way you don't have to travel as much, even though you're not getting as much money as MLS games. With the travel and everything, you would have spent more money. So it's worth it to stay at home for USL. So anyway, I don't know. It's interesting because I think there's definitely a lack of consistency in there. But that was a crazy play. I didn't understand it at all. So yeah, that's sort of that. I just wanted to bring that up. So, but yeah, that was Dejan Joveljic, who made the bench for the team of the week, by the way. So it was Gabriel Peck. And team of the match day, of course. And Dejan Joveljic down there at the bottom makes the bench as well. So Galaxy get the 4-2 win. Overall, you were talking about Dejan Joveljic, though, so let's continue talking about him. Goals plus assists across equalized, I think, for 90 minutes, right? So go through it, look everything in there. Dejan Joveljic.
Who spelled Luis Suarez's name wrong? Come on.
It wasn't me, but you are right. That's the Z, and it should be an S. Dejan Joveljic down here is basically at 1.05 goals and assists. So 0.81 on the goals and 0.24 on that. So this is per 90, right? So Dejan Joveljic is, again, one of the top, goals and assist goals leaders in Major League Soccer. So maybe that buoys your MVP talk there, Kevin. Maybe that makes a little more sense. Maybe Dejan Joveljic isn't so far. Patrick
Go back to that.
Patrick in the chat room, by the way, said that it would depend on how Dejan Joveljic scored his next 10 goals, right? Like maybe he does them spectacularly, and that means that he's going to be an MVP. I think that's fair.
Look, I mean, first of all, I'm just so embarrassed that MLS would spell Luis Suarez has over 400.
I don't think this was MLS. I don't think MLS did that.
But you look at Messi's 36, Suarez 37. Look at the ages to the left. You know, Arango 29, Boenga. Joveljic is by 5 years, the youngest on that list.
No, he's not. Carlos Gomez is at 21, but it's close. 24.
Well, no.
Like in the upper part. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
He is very much younger than the people who are above him. So no, that's something there. The LA Galaxy, again, I feel like they have enough depth to really be competitive in this. And so now we have to watch. I did like this. Joseph Paintsel said feels good to be back. He scored a goal. He was very lively in his time. And again, Greg Vandy said he could have had 3 or 4 other goals in that game, and probably rightfully so. Let's get to the standings real quick. Eastern Conference is Miami up top, then Cincinnati, New York City FC, who comes in on Wednesday night. Now, they just lost to Columbus. We'll talk about that game here in a little bit. If you go over to the Western Conference, it's Salt Lake at the very top, just 3 points ahead of the LA Galaxy right now in the same number of games. LAFC is 2 points ahead of the LA Galaxy with 1 less game played, and then it's the LA Galaxy at 31 points in 3rd position. Overall, the LA Galaxy are in 5th position in the Supporters' Shield, Miami leading that, but Miami, again, has 19 total games played, the only team with 19 games played. So actually, their lead over the Eastern Conference is a lot more tenuous than you would expect it to be.
This is really interesting, by the way. Kudos for doing that this way. You always used to have the one conference and the other, and you had to Google, toggle from one to the other. I like this. I like seeing all these teams like this. Seattle above the playoff line now. Look at St. Louis below the playoff line with a -4 goal differential. I guess they were a flash in the pan last year. I don't know. Look at Atlanta. Already fired their coach down there in 13th in the East. It's pretty interesting. MLS is fun in the fact that I kind of like dynasties. You follow one team and you just know they're going to be good every year. Like it was weird to look at the Bundesliga table and Bayern Munich wasn't at the top, but I also do like that St. Louis is below the line, Portland below the line, Atlanta struggling. Montreal had a couple of bad years, had a good year last year. Now they're back below the line. It's just, you got to pay attention in MLS. Things change from week to week.
By the way, $5 super chat from Scott says, hello all, will Desco fine and card the goalkeeper for the hit against Joveljic again? Probably. He asked that before I talked about it. But I think that's unlikely. That would be my guess. I think it's unlikely at this point. So I certainly wouldn't hold up any hope for that. Another super chat that came through that I've been sitting on waiting for it to pop up in our discussion. Adam with the $2 super chat. Thoughts on Gino Vivi going on loan to Saprissa? Let's talk about that rumor. Basically, the LA Galaxy and Saprissa and Gino Vivi, who's been down playing for Ventura County or G2. Basically, they reached a verbal agreement for the loan of Gino Vivi for 6 months. And the documents are ready to sign in the next days. That's from Kevin Jimenez on Twitter. This is a confirmed thing that is happening, it seems. And so I can tell you that the Galaxy see it as a good move for Gino Vivi going out, getting himself some playing time, being able to go there and play on a team like Saprissa. Good for his development, good for a lot of those things. So it is a positive in that way. Now, the bad thing is that he's been apparently an absolute beast down at Ventura County. Been playing really well. So there's going to be a big hole that gets opened up down there. But again, the LA Galaxy shuffling things around. I believe there's some money involved in this, or at the very least, it's salary, it's roster spots, could possibly even be an international slot, except for Vivi was loaned down to G2 on a permanent loan for this season. So there's some wiggle room in there. Again, the Galaxy are, how do I say this? This is a positive. If you are in a salary cap league, Kevin, it is probably your imperative to use every single penny that is available to you to maximize the talent that you have, right? So you're always going to be up against the salary cap. If you're not up against the salary cap, you're saving it for some reason, right? And then eventually you're going to spend that money and then be up against the salary cap. It's very rare that you would just leave cap space open, because that's quite honestly a way that you could get better, right? So the Galaxy right now are shaking the rugs. They're going down into the couch. They're pulling out the pennies. They're looking for all this stuff because they're trying to put some money together in order to go after guys like a Marco Royce. Somebody asked, I think it was a super chat in here. Lasso actually asked. He says, "Evening, gents. Exciting game as is the pod. How many stars would you rate the Royce rumor?" As far as I know, you're in a 4-star rumor. I mean, it's not a 5-star, but let's put it this way. If we wanted to rank like how hot the rumor is, I would put it in like, we're not boiling water, we're not steaming, but the water's warm, right? It's like, but the rumor is real. It is something the LA Galaxy are trying to do. So as far as the rumor being real, 5 stars. As far as it maybe actually happening, I think you're more in like the 3 to 4 right now, and that will shift, and we'll find out whether it happens. You had conversations not too long ago, Kevin. There was no guarantee in anybody's voice about Marco Royce.
It seems to be on his side. It sounds as if the thing with Charlotte over discovery rights, which remains ridiculous. It seems like that's been worked out, or at least a path to working that out has been done. The Galaxy with these recent moves down to Chivas, and this move with Vivi, as you said, they're trying to scare up a little bit of money. That's probably for the transfer, or it would be a transfer fee, right? He's not going to be a free transfer, is he? Or maybe I guess it's money for Charlotte. Because
it's the money for Charlotte because he's out of contract with Bayern.
Yeah, so the Galaxy are looking,
sorry, go ahead.
The Galaxy are looking for money to make this deal work, and I don't think they would be doing that. Like you're right, you're right. Well, if you have the resources to go out and get some money, then do it. But then the thing is, you got to spend it, or else you've wasted a resource by letting a player go.
Yep.
So I think the Galaxy, I think there is a strategy here. They're working on something. All these moves are related to something, and I think it's, like you said, paying Charlotte and then getting Marco Reus over. Now, what if it doesn't work? You got to make the effort, and they're making the effort. And from what I hear, it's kind of on Marco Reus's end now. Does he want to come here? Does he want to go somewhere else? And it sounds like I said, it sounds like the Charlotte thing is done. That's what all these trades are about. Reus just has to make a decision where he wants to go play. Or if he wants to play.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to get through some of the charts that we have. Just the DP minutes again, 78.3% of the total minutes the DPs have played. That's getting Joseph Paintsel back and, of course, losing Riqui Puig. The 78.3, again, the highest I have ever had on any of these charts is 2022, where the LA Galaxy had DPs played, 2021, where the LA Galaxy DPs played 62.9% of the total available minutes. Right now, they're at 78.3%. And I actually expect that to stay relatively solid, knowing sort of where everybody is and the health status of everybody. So the Galaxy doing extremely well on that front. One of the things that I always track is the points are better. What is the percentage of the points are better? And the LA Galaxy are 83.3% of the time they are getting 1 point or better. The last time it was anywhere near that was in 2016. Again, another 2016 reference for you there, Kevin. A team that had a ton of draws, but didn't lose a ton of games. So maybe surprising, maybe not.
So, well, they got a point a game.
That's how it works, right? So that's one of those things that that looks in there. But if you go back to an MLS Cup winning year, 2011, 85.3% was sort of in that range again for a point or better. Looking at the LA Galaxy in the points per month, started June with a loss, now in with a win, 1.5 in terms of the points per game this month. The Galaxy's record is March, where they were 2.20 points per game across those 5 games. Galaxy have 5 games in June. That's sort of the mark they're looking for again, is the 2.2, trying to get above that. Difficult time to do it. Galaxy have New York City FC coming in. They're a very good team. Then they go away to Real Salt Lake, who is top in the Western Conference, who has probably the best MVP candidate right now with Chicho Arango in there. So this is not, remember we're always trying to find out when the LA Galaxy are going to win 3 games in a row, Kevin, right? Are they going to win 3 in a row? This doesn't seem like that week, right? This doesn't feel like that week. The Galaxy, again, always sort of have some of these little things that conspire against them. Going to altitude for the 3rd game of 3, not the way to win 3 games in a row.
Let's think about this for just a minute, because you make really good points.
What?
We have some injured players, right? Or guys that a little banged up, and Paintsel's in that camp, certainly Brugman and Puig. Guys are a little bit banged up. Yes, they're coming off a 2-week break, but not 100% healthy. You got New York City, a team that's pretty good, playing pretty well this year, but you're at home for that game, and they're traveling cross country for the midweek game. I don't think they played this last weekend, so they
did.
Should be ready.
They played on Friday night, though.
Okay.
Friday night.
Okay. So they're coming across country to play this game on your home turf, a place where you're unbeaten this season, probably feeling a little bit better about playing there. But then you got to go to Salt Lake. So is this the game where, if you're resting players, and I think Greg Vanney's got to rest players because it's 3 in a week, is this the game where you rest players and roll the dice and hope you can win, and then you set up to go to Real Salt Lake, a conference game, the leaders of the conference, a chance perhaps to pass them and take over first place if they win midweek?
I am always about winning your home games. So for me, it's, you're already going to be tired. It's already going to be a tough game against Real Salt Lake. Beat New York City on Wednesday night, win your home games, worry about your road games. And by the way, you winning 2 games in a row and then having a chance to win a 3rd at altitude puts a little fire under people. They'll be not as tired if there's a winning streak on the line. So for me, I put my cards on New York City on Wednesday night, and I rest people against RSL if I need to rest people.
That's interesting. That's an interesting strategy.
By the way, it's not one that makes any real sense, by the way, because you have to rest people. You have to give them time off between games. This is how they go. They know whether or not you're recovered. They have the ability to track all of that stuff. So they know who's recovered, who's not recovered. So maybe you're going to go in there and pick the guys who are the most recovered, and they're going to put out. I mean, that's a way to do it. It's not like you can say, well, you can rest after. People always talk about, oh, well, just rest after. It doesn't mean that you have anything left in the tank for the Wednesday game. So you can't just say just rest after the Wednesday game. Do you know what I mean? Like you won't have the energy. It doesn't matter if you rest after. You're not going to have the energy for Wednesday night.
No, I really think you make an interesting point. And so we're going to see a change at center back. Cáceres will play one of these games. I think Jonathan Perez and his health are going to be key because, as we know, the wingers do an awful lot of running. Fagundes is a little older. If he has to play, in Puig's spot again, they're going to need some help on the outside. So that's going to be really important. But Fagundes talked about it. He said in this league, the strategy always is win all your home games, and then if you can win 4 or 5, and I think that's what he said.
That's
right?
exactly what he said.
5 of 17 on the road, you're good. So he's exactly talking about what you talked about. The game that you got to win is the home game. On the road, you're playing with house money anyways. If you win, great, but you're not supposed to.
That sort of thing. Here is the thing I want everybody to do for real this time. All right. I so often see people talking about must-win games and stuff like that. That's crap that you put in your head that you don't need to worry about. Right?
You know why? Because if it's a must-win and you lose, then what do you do?
Then it's not really a must-win, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, the whole point here is that you are actually, this isn't FIFA. You are managing players. You are managing personalities. You are managing health. You are managing egos. You are managing all these things that you don't get with the push of a button on your PlayStation, right? So when we talk about, and again, I get it, win the games in front of you. Absolutely, 100%. Love that idea. But it's more important in Major League Soccer to win your home games than it is to win your away games, right? That's just how it has always been. You win your home games, exactly what Diego Fagundes says. Listen to the guy who's been playing since he's, 16 in this league? He knows what he's talking about. I agree 100%. But you can't, if you have a guy who's tired, you can't just put him out there and be like, well, just go run. You won't get the performance that you want out of him. That's not going to happen. There is no refuel button. You're going to have to sub people. You have to rotate people. So there's real game management in this stuff.
You know what a must-win was? D-Day. I think D-Day was must-win.
By the way, mathematically, very, very important, right? No, we talk, and this is why you get people put into the must-wins. Sometimes there's no must-win games in a season, right? If you're already in the playoffs, maybe, must-win in order to clinch the Supporter Shield. Yeah, okay, I'm in. I can buy that. Let's do the maths, right? As the English would say, let's do the maths, right? So tell me whenever that happens. Otherwise, understand that you have to manage players across multiple games, multiple competitions, across almost an entire year. That is not just pressing X, pressing O, hitting your right trigger button. That's not how this works. These are real decisions and consequences that happen every single game. People were all over Greg Vanny for making the Cuevas sub, right? He came out and told you why. He knew what he was doing. He was managing minutes for people. He got Mauricio Cuevas some minutes that he didn't think he was going to be able to get for people. He got Johnny Perez out of a situation where he said he could have gone. They could have brought him back out at halftime. They didn't want to. They wanted to shut him down and make sure he was good so that way they can use him in the next couple of games, right? That's what they did with Johnny Perez. That's the stuff that people are missing whenever they're trying to make these criticisms of all this stuff all the time. There's so much little information that is coming in to the players and the coaches where these decisions are made. All right.
You think McCarthy is going to sit one of these games, right? Hasn't he sat in the previous 3-day?
He did. He did. And maybe you see Mitrovic on Wednesday night, right? The whole deal. And I get it. RSL's a 6-pointer. That's great. You're a third game of 3. What is Josh's rules? Who's going to RSL to go watch them play RSL? What is Josh's rules? Don't go watch the LA Galaxy in the third game of 3 on the road. Double that whenever it's at altitude. Okay, 100%. Double that. You can call it a 6-pointer all you want. I understand that. I get why you say that. For those that don't know, and you should know, if you are kept from getting 3 points and another team gets 3 points, that's a 6-point gap that opened up, right? So that's why we call it 6-pointers. But it's not as important right now. I know the RSL game isn't as important right now as the points at home against New York City FC. It's going to be a very difficult game against Real Salt Lake. Bruce Arena used to throw in he would rotate whenever they would go into RSL, like they'd have a 3-game week, they'd go into RSL and they'd rotate and they'd have, all of the young guys playing in the game. And you know what? Occasionally they won those games, right? So that's something Greg Vanney could do against RSL is you put in all the young guys, you say, go out there and win me a game, right? Like Bruce used to ask of the team, go out there and steal a game, score a goal and then keep them off the boards. Go out there and highway robbery. That's what you're going to be looking for against Real Salt Lake. Patrick, by the way, $10 super chat. He says, love this show. Thank you. Pato and Panda, PNP.
Well, another thing Bruce used to do, the old time coaches, Bruce and Bob, I don't know I've never spoken to Greg about this. When they went to altitude, they waited to get there as late as possible and then get out as early as possible. The idea being, if you're in the altitude city for 24 hours, then you begin to lose the oxygen carrying capacity you had at sea level, and it hurts. You become fatigued, you become more tired. I have since talked to some doctors that say that that's not necessarily true, that it sounds good, but it's basically an old wives' tale. However, if you believe it, I also talked to another doctor, a guy that was with the Dodgers, and that medical tape that some players use. Yeah. He said, I don't see any, as a doctor, I don't see any value to that. He goes, but if the guy thinks it helps, it helps. Yeah. So if Greg can convince the guys, look, we get there 12 hours before the game, you're going to be fine, then they're going to be fine.
Yeah, no, it is. And by the way, Pottermore says every home game is a must-win. Otherwise, don't bother at all. But when they lose, what happens, Pottermore? Is the season over? Like, see, that's why it's BS. Stop putting must-wins out. I'm gonna create a T-shirt that says must-win and a cross-out, right? Unless there's math involved, don't come at me with must-wins. Oh, you know what? New York City is a must-win. What if they lose? What's gonna happen? Kevin, does the season end? Doesn't end, right?
Probably not.
Probably not. It probably won't, right? That's exactly what it is. So
and I actually asked some coaches that. I think it was back in the baseball days about that, because at the end of the season, it's must win. As you say, must win. And I asked a coach, I said, did you give that speech? Did you give the must win speech? He goes, why would I do that? Because it's Friday. If I say Friday's game's a must win, is anyone coming back Saturday if we lose?
Right.
You can't do that, because then you can't come back to the team the next day and say, well, we lost the must win game, but we still got a chance. No, you said yesterday we had to win.
No, that was it. Yeah. Absolutely, 100%.
There will be, they may go into the last. We've seen this before. The Galaxy go into the last week of the season. They have to beat Houston.
That's a must win.
That's a must win.
100%. Oh, so Pottermore says, so play for a draw then, right? That's you're confusing terms. This is exactly what I'm talking. You're confusing terms. A must win is a mathematical certainty. You must win this game, otherwise something happens. Playing for a win. The Galaxy are always playing for wins. Every single time. So is every other MLS team that goes out there. Right? Now, sometimes they're more conservative in their approach, and they said, this is how we're going to win the game. We're not going to go out there and try to score 7 goals tonight. We're going to score 1, and we're going to park the bus. And that's conservative. And people will say, well, the Galaxy are playing for the draw. They're not playing for the draw. They're saying, this is the game plan that we think will win us. So yeah, we need Patrick says we need to get Pato this is a must-win game T-shirt for me. That's so good. I like that. I like you guys.
Yeah,
I like these guys. These guys are fun. I enjoy it. All right, let's talk a little bit about the game coming up. By the way, wanted to show the score first, allow first chart that I like to do. 6-1-2 when the LA Galaxy score first. They are 2-2-3 when they allow the first goal. 4 times out of 7 games, the LA Galaxy have allowed the first goal and gotten a point or better. That is outstanding. You want to talk about that stuff? By the way, most of those are away games. You want to talk about how you win and you get into points and you do all this stuff? Keep chipping away on the road the way that the Galaxy are. Keep up the same work that they're doing at home, but keep chipping away on the road. Getting a point here, getting 3 points there. Those are huge. They give you so much more breathing room at home. It takes less pressure off of you at home. Home should always be a place where you feel comfortable. And I think a lot of times, Kevin, the LA Galaxy have felt pressured at home, pressured to win because they weren't winning on the road. So this year, very much a mental sort of shift for them.
Well, think about where we were last year. I mean, the supporters boycott had just ended, but my God, talk about guys who you could sense the pressure they felt at home.
The amount of crap I got on here for saying that once the LA Galaxy clear this Chris Klein problem, once that goes away, they're going to be okay. And what happened after that is they went on a pretty good little win streak, right? They started playing, they unbeaten, they were playing well, and it was sort of like, yes, he told you. And then the injuries really hit and piled on, and that was the end of that, right? It was like, oh, they finally got off the ground, and they're back down on the ground. But
well, you and I
it matters.
About this. I had a long, very, very positive, very polite discussion with Chris at SoFi the other day when they were having a World Cup event. It's less than 2 years to the World Cup. I like Chris, and I know you do too, and you've had your relationship with Chris. It was never a personal thing when we talked about Chris on this show. It was just the Galaxy were not winning, and something had to change, and it was our determination, and eventually AEG's determination that Chris was the guy that had to go. It's never personal. I like Chris a lot. I really enjoy our time together, but it wasn't working last year.
No, it wasn't. Adam, by the way, $5 super chat. Hey, do you guys think Saturday versus RSL will be an alternated lineup? For me, it is. And I think New York City is where you focus. I think RSL is less. I know people are going to think this is crazy because it's the top team in the Western Conference, but you're on the road. It's not as big a game as I think everybody makes it out to be. It's too early in the season for it to be this like giant game. It's not.
Yeah. You talked me into that. And I do remember when Bruce did that, and that was such an effective strategy, basically telling these guys, hey, this may be your only playing minutes in the next month. Show me what you got. And guys just bust their butt and do things that they're not capable of doing because they know the big guys watching and it's their only chance to impress them.
It is one of those things. LA Galaxy will face off against New York City FC coming up at 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, June 19th. That is Juneteenth there. The LA Galaxy have a whole bunch of stuff planned at the stadium. So it'll be a Wednesday night, but it should be a good time to come see some soccer. I'm trying to see. I want to get to all of it. Basically, oh no, that was the wrong one, Kevin. I picked up the wrong sheet. I had like 30 pieces of paper tonight because I was trying to get all of it. Apparently, I didn't print that one out. All right. But anyway, no, the Galaxy have a whole system and a whole set of things with Soccer Fest and everything else going on. So make sure you check that out because that'll be a big time for the LA Galaxy coming in on a Wednesday night against New York City. Again, they haven't played New York City FC all that many times. Only 6 times in the total existence of the two clubs. New York City, a later edition. The last time they played was in 2022, the LA Galaxy winning at home 1-0. Before that, it was wins by New York City in 2019 and 2018, and the LA Galaxy overall have 2 wins, no draws, and 4 New York City wins on that. So 4 losses for the LA Galaxy. One of the few teams I think that the LA Galaxy are really upside down on right now. So New York City coming in. I talked about it, Kevin. Friday night, they played against Columbus. If you watch that game, it was an hour delayed because of some thunderstorms that came through. So it was later than they thought they were going to play. They finally got to play on the little tiny postage field out there at Yankee Stadium. And in the 39th minute, right around there, New York City got a red card on a dog-so situation. So then they were playing down a man. What did they do, Kevin? They went into that second half and scored the first goal. So New York City was winning 1-0. And then it was Columbus's turn to sort of pour it on. That game ended 3-2 with Columbus winning, but New York City played that game down with 10 men. So I think there's positives and negatives. One is that New York City, before that, was a team that had been extremely good in terms of only losing once. They lost to Colorado at home in the middle of their run. And then you look at this Columbus loss that they just had as well. But I think through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So through 12 games, they've only lost twice. Right. So as
you pointed out the scores, the Galaxy lost the last 2 in New York where they play on that very small Yankee Stadium field. The Galaxy won the game in Dignity Health Sports Park. I think you're going to see a real clash of styles. I think the way New York City, because they play on that small field, they're going to play very narrow. The Galaxy are going to have their heels on the touch lines and spread it out, and they're going to try to make New York uncomfortable, covering a lot more territory than they're used to covering. I mean, I think New York is really hurt by playing on that tiny field when they go on the road, and I think that's something that Greg Vanney is clearly aware of, and he's got a lot of speed out on the wings, and I expect the Galaxy to really exploit the outsides against New York City and use that speed and try to force those guys again to cover more ground than they're used to covering.
The other thing I would point out in this is look how many home games they had through those 12 games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So more than half of their games. And then they just had the one that they lost. It was 8. So 8 of the 12 were at home. I don't know why we're getting such lopsided home and away schedules this year, but it matters. It always matters. So pay attention to that. I think New York City's numbers are artificially inflated for where they're at. The loss to Columbus hurts. Plus, they had 10 guys, which means they've expended a lot of energy to try to get back in that game. The extra day is going to be helpful for them, but it's a long flight over. The game starts at 7:30 p.m. for the LA Galaxy, which is a 10:30 p.m. body clock time for New York City FC. That's not easy to overcome for a lot of ways.
Yeah, but that's the city that never sleeps.
Yeah, that's a big deal. So there's a big difference between starting a game at like 7:38 and starting a game at 10:30, 11.
How many of those guys live in Manhattan?
All
on MLS salary?
I have no idea. I would guess very little, very few.
A lot of guys from Queens and
they're in New Jersey. They have to drive by Red Bull Stadium on their way into Yankee Stadium and all that. So they are a good team, and I don't think that the Galaxy should, and I think Diego Fagundes talked about, there's nobody that scares them. There's nobody that scares this LA Galaxy team. I think even without Riqui Puig, the LA Galaxy could very well put together a good team on this, but they are going to be without, what is it? It's Alenich, I believe, is their right back who got caught with the red card. So he's going to be out, so they're going to have a replacement in there. They're a good passing team. They score goals quickly. They like to play in tight spaces, which is evident by their small field. They really do know how to use that small field to their advantage. So the LA Galaxy, a team that likes to play through the middle, would probably be more wise to play out on the wings, as you pointed out. So for me, this is a game the Galaxy can win. I think New York City is at the disadvantage. I think New York City is thinking about their next game and not necessarily this Wednesday night game where they have to travel all the way across the country in order to do it. So I think there's a real advantage for the Galaxy in this. Even down, by the way, down to 10 men, New York City ended up with a 2.3 on expected goals, right? And scored 2 goals. All those came with down a man. So I wouldn't count them out for a second. And so for me, this is a winnable game for the LA Galaxy. It's going to be a tough game, and I think it only gets tougher as they then transition away from New York City and into RSL. If Greg Vanney rotates heavily in this Wednesday night game, then you know what's coming up for RSL.
Well, I think the Galaxy are looking beyond all this to the Rose Bowl game.
Could be. Very well could be.
You're going to be there, right?
No, and you know that, so I don't know why you ask. Everybody on this podcast knows. They're fine with it. You're the only one who keeps asking. June schedule right now, it's New York City, then away to Salt Lake, then away to San Jose. Those are those ones.
Stanford Stadium game.
It is the Stanford Stadium game. Always have to give San Jose their money game. And then you head into July 4th against LAFC at the Rose Bowl, then home against Minnesota 3 days later, and then away to Dallas. This is all in July, all the way up to that 7:31 game, which is a Leagues Cup game, right? So that July 31st game is the first game of Leagues Cup. We'll put that on the schedule. We go to the next one. The other game that's on that Leagues Cup schedule right now is the Chivas game on August 4th. Then the LA Galaxy don't play another league game until August 24th. Depends on what they do in Leagues Cup, how far they go, all that sort of fun stuff about whether or not they will advance and play any more games in Leagues Cup. You get to August 24th, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games left in the season. That's it. That's how this works. Leagues Cup hits, and the LA Galaxy have 8 games. So anybody that you bring in, and I think that people are going to start arriving probably, if I'm a guessing person, I believe it was the 17th. Is that the game? Yeah. There's a July 17th game. I would imagine that if you're going out to get people, Kevin, and you're getting them in the I believe that home game on the 17th is where you would see any new arrivals coming in.
However, there is a union rule, International Players Union, that if they need to have a month off. So if they've gone straight from their club season in Europe or anywhere, and they go into the Euros, and depends on how far their team goes in the Euros, because they're going to need a month off after that. So if the Galaxy are looking at people that are playing in Euros or other tournaments, Copa America, whatever, they're going to have some time off before they can come over. So that might affect it too.
It could. Well, I don't know. We'll certainly watch, but if it's the guy, I don't think there's going to be any problems. But maybe, you never know. We'll keep an eye.
Who's the guy? I'm
not mentioning any names. We've already talked about a whole bunch of stuff. So, that's sort of where we sit for the LA Galaxy. The schedule is coming. The scheduled games, there's a ton of games still to be played. A lot of those games will be played before the summer transfer window opens. You get into the summer transfer window. You get into the July 4th game. You get into multiple games in a week again. You're going to cram that all in before the end of July where the Leagues Cup hits. Leagues Cup hits at the end of August. You're going to be back playing league games, and there's 8 games to go in the season. That's it.
You bring up another good point. You're bringing a lot of good points today. So 8 games left after basically the summer transfer window, or when guys could start arriving. Maybe they can play 9 games. That's not the mid-season like it used to be. You used to get a guy in the transfer window and you had him for half the season. That didn't happen anymore.
Yep.
It really seems to dilute the effect of getting a guy at that summer transfer window.
It is, and I think that's one of those big sort of takeaways that you can look at is that you, if you had a good team leading up to the summer transfer window, that you're probably in a good spot, and therefore you can afford the lack of impact that your summer signings may provide. Because as you pointed out, there's a lot of things. Yeah, I'm not going to say it, but visas and everything else. Let's not even play those games.
And Don Garber's going to say, "Oh, but you're going to have him for that big Santos Laguna game in Leagues Cup. Don't forget that." Yeah. No.
Yeah. And by the way, the summer transfer window is opening up later than it was, right? That July 18th is actually when the summer transfer window opens up, right? So, as was pointed out in the chat room, so it's even later than the 7/17. The announcements are going to come before that, and then you're going to get people in. So again, there's just not that many games for these. The thing is, you're going to get guys who come in and they're going to have an impact for good teams in the playoffs, right? That's when things are sort of going to happen. But there's going to be a quick learning curve for some of these. Let's see. Matthew, $5 super chat. Late to the party, but I still think that preseason optimism is alive. Can't wait to get the boys to their first match. No, Matthew, listen. I don't know if you've been around Galaxy fans lately, but anytime anybody sneezes, they're ready to go ahead and fold the season. That's not what the season is. The Galaxy are in 3rd place in the Western Conference. I believe they're still, at the very worst, I think they're a top 5, top 6 team in the Western Conference. And see how that plays out. They get stronger in the summer and they can climb that.
But they need to be in the top 4. Right? That's going to be my red line now because they're so good at home.
Well,
because we talked before about what does Greg Vanney have to do? He's in the last year of his contract. He needs to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I think he needs to win the first game at least. Well, yeah, if he loses the first, that's a must win. The first game is a must win.
It can be.
And he needs to win that first game. And so I think top 4.
Remember that first series is the best of 3. So,
that's right. Yeah. It's the National League Championship or Division Series now.
It's stupid.
Forgot about that.
So the whole deal. Angelinos818, $2 super chat. 3rd kid at the Rose Bowl? Absolutely not. Not happening. There will not be a 3rd kid at the Rose Bowl. And by the way, think about it. Just think about it off the top of your head. Does MLS want anything other than the LA Galaxy wearing white and LAFC wearing black? Isn't that what the broadcasts and Apple and MLS, isn't that what they want? They want white versus black in that game. They don't want anything
black
else.
And white TV. If you have a black and white TV.
Exactly. It would be perfect, right? The whole deal. So absolutely not. It's
Can you stream in black and white, like on your phone if you got Apple TV? Does it come in black and white?
No, you can't. It would be cool if there was a filter that you could turn on to make it black and white,
Make it look like old timey.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, 3rd kit not at the Rose Bowl. I actually asked this weekend. I was trying to pry out of them when the 3rd kit. I would expect July sometime. July sometime. Maybe. I don't know. But July sometime. You don't know. So don't throw things out. Trust me. Everything we say gets quoted on social media. So tell everybody you don't know.
I don't know either, but I'm just knowing how MLS is so focused on making this Leagues Cup, which is stupid, a big deal. I could see them doing that.
Might very well. I don't know, but I'm just telling you that it's not going to be.
Chicharito's coming back. Maybe they would do it for that game.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see how it all goes in. So anyway, that's where we sit for the LA Galaxy coming up Wednesday night game. I won't ask Kevin to do this, but I'll tell you. I think the Galaxy win this game is 2-1. It's going to be a really cagey match.
It's a must win.
Yeah, well, that's what I heard. That's what everybody keeps saying. It's a must win. I have to win. You must win all your games at home. It sucks for all the other teams who are currently out of the league because they didn't do that. They've lost games at home. By the way, remember, we just told you that stat. There's only 3 teams who are undefeated at home at this point. So there are 26 teams who have been eliminated from this race. They're done. They're done. That's it. That's a fun one.
You made a good point again. That the first round of the playoffs isn't even a must-win anymore.
Nope, it's best of three.
Chances.
Well, unless you're in that play-in, that 9-8, right? Isn't there a 9-8?
That's a must-win.
Yeah, that's a must-win. So that's
And
where
again,
I sit.
so Steve Day was a must-win.
It's 100%. I agree. I agree. All right. Anything else, Kev? You good?
You imagine a guy storming the beach, go, "We're playing for a draw here."
I mean, I have to imagine that there were some battles throughout history, and I'm sure there's some history buffs, where they were like, our job isn't to win today. Our job is just to sit here and make this a stalemate. There has to be, because that's like a diversion for some other thing that's going on. So like even that, I don't think you can sit there and say, oh, well, we got that. Even in war, I imagine that there are draws that you go out there and try to get.
Perk the tank.
That's right. So anyway, so that's where we think the LA Galaxy are headed. New York City and then RSL. We'll see if there's any rotations in that, and that's sort of the big thing to take away. We talked about Gino Vivi. One thing we didn't talk about. Julian Araujo was at the game. Yes, he was, absolutely. And there's a news announced that he will join the Barcelona A team for preseason. He's going there for preseason, which is a big step from last year. So, excuse me. So that's a good one. Julian Araujo there, pink hair and all, hanging out. I saw Greg Vanney give him a big hug whenever they came up the tunnel after the game. Julian Araujo's there. Maya Ishida went over and gave him a hug. So it was good to see Julian Araujo back and sort of around the Galaxy. But he's got a lot of fans in LA, so that was fun to see. All right, anything else? Are we good?
I think we're good.
All right. Let's get out of here then. If you're looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on Twitter and X, it's at KBaxter11. Head on over to LATimes.com for all your wonderful LA Times coverage of all sports that Kevin gets to cover. So you'll be there in no time. LATimes.com is where you're going to check it out. If you're looking for me on Twitter and X, it's at Guesman, at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. And of course on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, any of those places where you can find our podcast. Go like and subscribe and give us a shout out. All right. I think that's about it for Mr. Kevin the Panda Baxter. I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening. You've been watching to Corner of the Galaxy from the box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye.